Welcome, Adventure. I'm GM Coblin, and today we're going to be talking about one-shots. And with the season coming on us for everything spooky, if you're like me, you end up running holiday one-shots, either for Halloween or Christmas, just when you tend to have either family that want to try out your game, or maybe you have people and friends with a little extra time on their hands and they just want to sit down and enjoy your company instead of having to commit to an entire campaign. Well, today I'm going to go over some tips for what you need to get ready for your one shots this season. Stick around. So, as we get started, remember to like, subscribe, and if you have any other one shots that are either pre constructed or free on the internet, put them in the comments below, and maybe you can help someone out find out what they need for this season. So, as I've said in one of my previous videos, I suggest people use modules pre-constructed when they first get started with either new adventurers or first-time GMing. When it comes to one-shots, it's a little bit different. A lot of people have problems with the pacing, and depending on how much time you have, that can be a real, problem for most GMs. We Be Goblins and their series is really good to get in for one-shots, a little more, a little less time. And you can jump from one to the other, but there's no real commitment to them. Just playing goblins, it's pretty good. If you look online, you can get a list of either short campaigns or you can use one shots that you find. There's tons of forums out there. If you don't mind converting to Pathfinder, or if you're a 5e fan, the Keys from the Golden Vault is actually pretty good when it comes to one shots. Just gives you enough storyline that you can play with your characters, hook them in, resolve an issue, and be done by the end of the night. And remember that whenever you do a one shot, there needs to be a simpler pattern than what we use for a long drawn out campaign. Because what works for one is not going to work quite so well for the other. Being close or getting close to Halloween, one thing that I see a lot of people do is from Rise of the Rune Lords, they will take the Foxglove Manor and all of its haunts and everything. I think there are 12 haunts, which, if you're new to Pathfinder, is kind of like just a trap. And they are specific for characters. You kind of divide them up, usually, or at least that's what I did whenever you go through them. And then I think there is about 6 encounters. And it's a good place to have a one shot that is spooky. It's got that haunted house feel to it. It's good. I've used it as a starter, actually, for PCs, just because the haunts can be kind of fun. A little dangerous at times, so pay attention to your DCs, especially if you're trying to convert it to a different edition. But it's good because it has a limited number of encounters, though, depending on how long your session is, maybe if you're only doing 3 to 4 hours, it might be a little too long when it comes to exploring and then getting all the encounters done in one day. Unless you play like I used to all the time, which would be having a longer session. But I'm going to go over how you can mess with that too and change it. Whenever you write, if you do write a one shot, you need your basics, which is you're starting for your setup, you need your hook, something to pull your characters into it, and then you need 1 or 2 destinations. You don't want a bunch of different spots. I'll get into why here in just a second. But that way, you do not have that much time transitioning. So, let's go to this one first. This is Foundry, VTT. This is a house. You want a quick hook and plot for your characters. And you can add some little things in. Say you need to go take out a bandit house from the local guard. They hire you to go in and dispatch or arrest, whatever you want to put it, this gang of ruffians. Well, maybe some grandma comes in and you throw in a tiny little side quest of, oh, you're going here and they have my daughter captured. And could you see if you can get them back? You know, the local police thought that it was a lost cause. Those things can add a little step or add a little more feel to what you're doing instead of it just feeling like a here to there simple quest, which is really what you're doing. And the players feel like there's something else involved when in reality they're doing the exact same thing. But you want these simple kind of hooks and the limited number of spaces or locations to speed things up because you do have such a limited amount of time. If I come in and they have to go to this first floor, set up for a location, and they have to go in and either investigate, interrogate, or dispatch the ruffians in this building. And then we have to find, travel to, and then locate. Even though time is relative in your game, the transitioning to a different location is going to extend the process. And even though, like in Pathfinder, we only have rounds for combat usually lasting 3 rounds, or combats encounters usually lasting about 3 rounds, unless you're like me and do tricky things for your players. It's still going to take minutes each round for each one of your players to get everything done, especially if you run higher level games. Level 1, everything goes by fairly simple. It's a lot easier, a lot less options, a lot less things to deal with. But it goes by much slower as you advance in levels. And so if you decide to run a one-shot 28th level campaign, it might not be too many encounters, because I've had a wizard take nearly an hour for their turn between summonings and extra abilities and time stops and everything else. So if you have to go from one location to the next, then you extend this time. But what if everything is one building? You go from one floor to the next. The players don't have to get ready for a new location. They're not trying to think about going into something new. They're already getting accustomed to the location they're in, and they're trying to investigate it as they go, so they get more aware and they know more of what to expect as they progress through the house or whatever you've got. Because any of us who have DM'd before know that going from location to location, from field to farm to cave to the site of a murder, even if there is 4 different encounters for that, it takes longer than if we're running something like a maze. This is an encounter I did for my players where they were in a maze, and I had keys. Every single one of these double lines here is encoded into the game to only accept players with certain keys to be able to get through. And so they had to go in and they had to go into each section and find the keys, and they had to fight opponents and find out ways to pull the other players through without getting split up. And it was a nice way to have a handful of encounters. And that's really all you want for a one shot for the most part. You can put little traps and things that only take a couple seconds for them to deal with. But combat encounters, you want maybe 3 to 5, depending on the level and how much time you have. But going through something like this allows them to go around the corner, engage in combat. They find an item, they go back and use it to unlock things. It allows them to go through this much quicker than if they're having to go from one site to another. So 3 to 5 encounters, a quick hook, a quick plot. Send your players in, and don't dawdle from going one location to the other. You know, the town gets hit by goblins and they're requested and go through the RP by the sheriff to dispatch the goblins, and then you send them off. Okay, they send off. Well, they're at the hill where the fortification where the goblins are, and then they proceed inward, however they're going to attack or whatever their plan's going to be. So it's going to be your job as the GM to speed this along, maybe even though you don't want to railroad them, but don't let it linger so much. Like sometimes we might want to drag out the sessions because of how much we're planning and how much we're putting into it. I've done quick little winter one, and it was one location to the next. Save the town, Santa's workshop, Ice Palace. There you go. And having everything close like this, which is why a dungeon crawl is so great, it will just make your game much faster. Another thing is, whenever you're running them, you have something like this. If your game is running short, or long, I should say, and you know that you've had 3 or so encounters up here, or almost 5 encounters up here, and they've taken care of all of the traps or haunts, you can remove things from rooms where they haven't gotten yet. You can still get description and eerie paintings on the walls, showing that used to be necromancers that lived here and all that kind of stuff. But being able to change it as you go through means, okay, we're going to take out 2 or 3 of those haunts in 2 of the floors. That way they have 3 less haunts to deal with. And the players are not going to be able to make it through this one shot if they go through this last section, because it's going to extend it by maybe another hour. So let's cut out those last few encounters and instead have that final encounter happen in a basement instead of a catacomb underneath, or in an attic where we find one of our other encounters. Being able to adjust on the fly, while might have to change your story a little bit, can help you in progressing through it. A lot of times what I will do is when I do a one-shot or an encounter like this, I will have things between what I know where we're starting, so at the building coming in, and then I can pull out some of that meat as we go along so that I know my players can get to that end in the 3, 4, 5, 6 hours that we're playing. I know that I can make sure and get this done because this may be the only time you have. But that's my advice really for a one shot. Like I said, you can come in and use parts of an adventure, like Foxglove Manor for a Halloween adventure is fantastic. And you can play it up and extend it for more than one session if you really want. But it's fantastic. It is one of the ones that I recommend actually might run for some newer players, and I might even be converting it to 5e for some of them for this year. Remember to make it a quick hook and meeting so that you don't have to spend a lot of time getting your players together, and then they can start the quest. Take them directly to the location where they need to go so that your encounters start. You don't have to roll a bunch of random encounters. We're not doing random encounters in this. And to shorten the story, to get to the graveyard and into the doors of the mausoleum, and then immediately to the tomb underneath the mausoleum and take care of the evil necromancer that's terrorizing the town. That way they can be done. It is one location, boom, 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 you're done. But that's how I do my one-shots. I might even either, like I said, redo the Foxglove Manor or do something for this year and put it out. If you like this video, check out my others. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. If you have any tips or requests, drop them in the comments below. And until next time, may your crits be epic, your adventures legendary, and your gaming table filled with laughter.